So in the previous video, you didn't miss a great deal if you didn't see it, but basically I showed you around my QT50 mortuary of mopeds and selected 3 possible hulks that I could reanimate. Most likely probably 1 or 2 will get reanimated. I think the possibility of having parts for all 3 is quite slim, for now at least. So the first bike I'm going to work on is the black one that you can see behind this rusty red one. And the first job on that is to de-rust the fuel tank. So let's dive in. Not literally, because that filler neck's not quite wide enough for a human, I don't think, and it looks quite nasty in there, but you know what I'm saying. So the first job we're going to do, I've already undone these 4 bolts under here. This tank is rusty as all balls. I don't know if you can see in there. Hang on. It's not very nice in there. So, I do have some stuff for that. I was going to do a tank liner. Oh, the cap seals, cork cap seals dropped out as I took it off, so it probably needs a new one of those. Yeah, I've got this stuff which I used on the I used that on my PT250, which I was quite pleased with the results, but unfortunately the tin's down to about there. It comes with these rust converter. Wagner, I think it's, yeah, there we are. Rust converter, and that's decent stuff as well. And it basically converts all the rust and then leaves the tank looking basically kind of a slight matte finish inside, which primes it essentially. So I was thinking of using the rust converter stuff in here, but then I was thinking, I don't know, because with it priming it, I don't know if it'll flash rust if you don't cover it with the resin stuff. So I'm probably going to use the vinegar method. I haven't fully decided yet. White vinegar, and then just leave it, and if it needs it, I'll do it again with the proper Wagner kit and line the inside. Bearing in mind I've probably got 3 of these to do. I should have a system sorted by the end of it. So yeah, we'll start with that. So today we're going to get on with the fuel tank. You can't see me, can you? Today we're going to get on with the fuel tank. One of the weird things about these QT50s, because there are many, is that inside here you've got the fuel tank, and then there's a section inside that which is oil tank. So I'm going to first of all drain the oil tank into a bottle, which theoretically just involves undoing this hose here and then directing the flow into that bottle. Caught it. It is coming out slowly. It's really thick as well. There we go. I can get rid of this now. There's a bit of brake cleaner in there. Running better now. Let it drain. One more shot. Try and get as much out as I can. But yeah, that 2-stroke oil was really old and thick and horrible, so it's no good anyway. Okay, so I've de-rusted fuel tanks with vinegar a few times on this channel in the past, but I'll talk you through how you do it. Now, first job is to take the cap off. The cork seal always seems to come off every time. So I need a rubber one, or one that will stay on a bit better. I think that one's dried out too much. Now, what I used to do was put some nail polish remover in there to get rid of all the old sludge and any oil that was still in there, so that the vinegar can do its thing. But the problem with nail polish remover is it also removes paint, so you've got to be very careful. So I'm going to try with some naphtha based brake cleaner. A fair amount, in fact. Oops. Let's just tip it in. There we go. So the cheap brake cleaner is acetone based, like nail polish remover, and it eats all the plastic bits and it ruins your paint. The little filter on your petcock will get ruined, whereas this stuff, hopefully, shouldn't do any of that, which is good because there's a little plastic float and a plastic fuel gauge in here. So definitely don't want to ruin that. It's a nice thing to have on a bike, a fuel gauge. Take the cap off, dump it out. Okay, so the brake cleaner should have adequately degreased the inside of the tank, which, let's see if you can see inside it. I bet you can't. Yeah, not a very good view, that is it, but it's still rusty, it's just been degreased. So now basically I'll put the oil cap back on so I don't get oil leaking anywhere as much. And then I've got some bulk white vinegar here. It's quite old actually, I don't know how long I've had it. Went out of date in November 23, but it'll do the job. Definitely still smells vinegary. So, move this to the edge of here. Try and fill it up without getting it everywhere, which is easier said than done. Can't see a thing, can you? Right, I imagine this is probably a better view. That is full. Put the cap on it. Shake it around a bit and leave it while I go weld up my car. So this is going well. Yeah, the petcock was leaking, so I've had to put a fuel clamp on it, and a hose clamp on it, sorry, and also it seems to be leaking from the bowl as well. So not only does it not turn off, but it also just leaks everywhere. So luckily I've only used about half of the vinegar, so I can top it up at a later date. If I turn it the other way up to do the other end, it leaks out the cap as well, so it's not exactly watertight at the moment. I think these petcocks are quite expensive as well, so I might have to see if I can get some sort of rebuild kit for it. But as long as it doesn't destroy the fuel gauge, I'll be happy. So we'll see how that goes. This has been sat for a few hours now. It is still leaking a little bit, but not as much as it was. It still feels quite full. But the next step once it's been soaking for a little bit, is to open it up. Ah, yeah, that's still almost full. You can actually see, maybe you can, all the sludgy rust on the surface of it there. So it is working, it's doing its thing. I'll probably leave it for 24, 48 hours, something like that. I've got a handful of gravel, just normal gravel off the driveway. And I'm not going to put that bit in because that's covered in bits of leaves. But the rest of it, just chuck it in. And shake it around to help loosen off all the rust that's in there. I don't know where it is at the moment, but I normally use a length of chain about 8 inches long to a foot long with a length of fishing wire on it, because then when you're finished you can just pull the whole thing out rather than having to try and tip gravel out, because obviously you don't want that in your fuel tank when it's finished. You can use nuts and bolts as well, anything like that really, and you have to give it a vigorous shake for quite a while all over. Another thing you can do, instead of sitting shaking it for hours, is put it in the tumble dryer on a cold setting, or put it in, I've used a cement mixer before, just wrap it up in towels, sheets, whatever, so it's not bouncing around, it's packed tight nice in there so it won't move, and just leave it for an hour, just going round and round and round. And at the moment, with the vinegar in there, it's cushioning it a bit. I should probably really have done this with like a cup of vinegar in there, maybe 2 cups of vinegar, something like that to start off with. So as it's leaking, once it drains out a bit, I'll do it again for a longer period of time, possibly put it back in the cement mixer, I don't know. But basically you just want to get all the rust flakes out of there that are still clinging onto the metal, and hopefully in a day or two it'll come up nice and shiny inside. Okay, so it's been 48 hours. I've been turning this round every probably 12 hours or so, something like that, so all sides have had a soak. So we're going to do a bit of a welfare check on it. I put it in this tray because it's upside down, and obviously the cork fuel cap seal wasn't very good, it was dry, but it seems to have rehydrated itself and sealed up, which is nice, so maybe we can reuse it, but I've ordered some more. So let's open her up. I've got this milk jug with a window cut out of it. Put that in there. Okay, let's try and get you a view in there. Got my handy dandy little flexible torch thing. I can see, I don't know if you can see it, I can see some metal in there. Oh, silver metal. So it's doing alright, there's still plenty of chunklets. So the gravel's all still in there as well. But I'm quite pleased with that so far. So I'm going to put some more vinegar in, shake it around, and then put the rest in, I think is the plan. Right, so now that there's less vinegar in there, it should cushion it a bit better. A bit less, I mean. Just to show you as well, where the fuel cap's been sitting in the rust, in the lovely, absolutely delicious vinegar, it's got kind of a layer of flash rust on it, but it just scratches off. So that'll clean up as well. It's looking a little bit better in there, so let's turn you around again and check it out. Gravel's really done the trick. I don't know how well you can see in there. Right, hang on. Yeah, you can see a lot of it is dispersed just from me shaking it around. So I'll do a little bit more of that, put all this vinegar back in it, probably leave it another 24 hours, something like that, and then we can move on to the next step. Right, the vinegar's back in, and you can just about see the horror in here. It's not looking great, is it? But that's all the rust flakes that we got out. So hopefully we should have a decent tank by the end of it, and then I'll show you how to neutralise the vinegar and clean all the water out and stuff. But until then, see you later. Here we are again, 24 hours later. It's actually a little bit more than 24 hours because I had to wait for it to stop pissing it down before I could come out here. But what we're going to do now is drain the tank and neutralise the vinegar. So first thing I'm going to do is take the petcock off, I think. Now, a word about petcocks. They're made of some sort of aluminium alloy that really doesn't like vinegar. So I'm fully expecting this to be ruined now. You could take it off and use like a rubber bung or something. I actually have somewhere a metal bung that fits perfectly in fuel tank holes that a friend of mine machined for me. But it is what it is, I can't find it. So let's work out which way this comes in front. There we go. This petcock leaks anyway, so, and also it appears it doesn't have the little filter on it, on the end of it. Can you see that? Focus, you swine. Yeah, the little filter's missing off the dip tube anyway, so we will see. It does have a little filter on the reserve. I don't know if you can see that or not. But yeah, this will probably not be very well inside, but I'm going to take it apart anyway to see if I can stop it leaking. I don't think you can buy a kit for these, but maybe I can do something with it. There's also, I need a little spanner for that. So my nice brand new fuel clamp, hose clamp thing, is also a bit rusty now because it's been sat in vinegar. So I'll show you what we're going to do with those. So we have an ordinary common garden jug of water and a tub of bicarbonate of soda. So don't be stingy with it. Chuck a load in. I'm using about half this tub, so that'll be about 100 grams I've put in there. Give it a good old mix around. With your shittiest screwdriver. And dump in anything that you want to neutralise the vinegar on. And it will have the same reaction as when you do the volcano science project with the vinegar and bicarb, where it fizzes off. It's basically neutralising because there's acid and alkali. So they neutralise each other and you end up with balanced pH, more or less. Close enough for this purpose anyway. So let's start dumping that out. Now this fuel cap has got a layer of like surface rust on it that scratches off, so I'm going to quickly soak it in the vinegar and dump all this out. It looks yummy. It's looking pretty good in there. See if I get some of this gravel out as well. This is the problem with using gravel, you've got to try and shake it all out. Get the last few bits up. Right, in order to get the rest of it out, because it's got this handy dandy fuel sensor thing on it, and take that off. Here is the little fuel gauge. I'm going to see if I can either take the insert out of the rubber bit, which is possibly more likely, or somehow get a cotton bud behind it and get that cleaned out. But we'll see on that one. For now it's going in there because this metal bit will have corroded. So there we go. So now we have a slightly more flush hole to get the stones out of, although still not that flush. There we are, empty. So now I'm going to take it to the outside tap and give it a quick spritz. So follow me. Right, now for the annoying bit. And we're basically just trying to get rid of all the little loose chunks that are left over. Turn you around a bit. Let's have a quick look inside. Looks quite a lot better, doesn't it? There are still a couple of bits of pitting and stuff, but it's not too bad. Right, so we can consider that rinsed out for now. Next job would be to clean the rust off this. Just going to use a brass wire brush to start off with. And you can see it's just all coming straight off. There was a bit of rust on this already to start off with, so I'm not too bothered, but I don't want it to be like ridiculously rusty. I've also got a bit of wire wool to go over it with. Get some of the fine bits. Well, that's come up okay, hasn't it? Plonk that in. Wipe my hands because they're horrific. So, next thing I'm going to do is have a look at sorting out this petcock. Okay, so that is the petcock done for now. Now, I'm well aware this is going to definitely leak, but from my point of view, it's better than having nothing on there. The next thing I want to do is neutralise any vinegar on the outside. So I'm just going to use this bit of rag, dip it in the bicarb water and just give it a good old scrub all over. Getting in all the little nooks and crannies. Make sure that anywhere that there's been vinegar has had this on it. You may notice I've left the oil tank basically alone after draining it. I'm not entirely sure if it goes all the way to the bottom of the tank or if it's a separate thing and maybe a gap. If there's a gap between the bottom of the oil tank and this bit, I might drill a hole through it and drill another one at the top to let the air out, and basically just have it as an extra bit of fuel tank. The other option is to just put fuel in it, run a fuel line off there, and have like a little tap to divert between the two, so it's a different type of reserve tank, I suppose. Because this tank doesn't strike me as particularly big, so I don't know how far I'd get on long journeys, and I'm not planning on the black bike having a rack on it because it's going to be as basic as possible. So we will see. I'll come up with something, I'm sure. Okay, now you may notice I haven't done the inside of the petcock. I'm sure some of it would have got done when it got dumped in there, but I'm now going to take everything out of here. It'll come out, and then I'm going to dump the rest in here. All my bits in the lid from the carb cleaner. Right. Try and keep any floaty bits out if I can. Alright, all the floaties are still in the bottom, so I'm going to leave that. How much is that leaking? Fair bit. It doesn't particularly matter. I just need to make sure it gets fully sloshed around the inside. Give it a bit of a soak for a couple of minutes. I'm going to take the dry bit of rag. In fact, I'm going to get a fresh rag. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so what I've done is I've dried everything off on this big old rag here. So I've done the fuel cap, the bezel surround thing from the fuel gauge. I've washed the fuel gauge in water and it's come out quite well, I think. So no need to take it apart or anything. I literally just put it under the outside tap that way on so that the water was going in that little channel there where that rides. That's okay. And I've quickly given the outside of the tank a wipe. So what we've done here is the vinegar has dissolved the rust, the bicarb has neutralised the vinegar to stop it flash rusting, and we've rinsed it all out, and now there's a bit of water in there. Now what you can do, what I used to do, was leave a hairdryer for an hour or two pointing inside there to evaporate it out, but it can also flash rust while you do that. So the secret weapon: isopropanol rubbing alcohol. Get the highest percentage you can. This is 99.9. I've done it with 90 before, that worked okay. I'm not sure the 70 stuff that's cheaper would. Now the way this works is you tip it in there and it's hygroscopic, so it bonds to the water molecules, and then you tip it out, and in theory, if you've swilled it out a couple of times, what's left should be almost entirely isopropanol alcohol, which then evaporates. I have tried burning it off once in a Puch Maxi tank, and it sort of turned into a little tiny pulse jet engine for a second. I wouldn't recommend it. But I've not got the petcock in because it's not going to be any good for the plastic bits in there. Also, same goes for this. I've left that out. So you're going to have to block the hole with your finger. When I turn it upside down in a minute, I'm going to have to block these holes on the top. But as long as it gets in all the nooks and crannies, and it's going to leak out a bit while I do this, I'm going to tip it out anyway. I'm just going to dump it on the floor because it's going to evaporate anyway. One more go with this. I think this 5 litre jug was about 15 quid. And I mean, that's how much I've used so far. Don't leave the lid off it though, because it'll evaporate in moments. Did that with some brake cleaner once. Right, I'm not going to care too much about splashing this everywhere because it will just evaporate in the fullness of time. And there it goes. Still looks nice and wet in there, but that should all evaporate, and then I can put it back together once it has. Try and drain all the last bits out. So the reason I dried the outside of the tank and everything else is because it does need degreasing, to be fair, but I'm going to do that. If I paint it, I'm going to do that before I paint it, because it'll only get greasy between now and then anyway. I'm going to get the tank, that bezel thing, and this fuel cap. The fuel caps have a vent hole in them, and it corresponds with the vent hole there. It's starting to flash rust already, Christ. But I can show you now. There's all the rest of that flash rust. Right, so you want to blow through it, because the inside of there is hollow. There we go. Stop it all flash rusting. Water displacement 40. The normal one will work fine. You don't have to have one of these fancy trigger bottles, but this is what I've got to hand. That's starting to evaporate. I'm going to throw a bit inside as well. Doesn't matter that the alcohol's in there, because it'll just mix together, swish it around, and it'll leave a thin film once the alcohol evaporates anyway. Get it everywhere inside the tank. As far as I'm concerned, this tank is done for now. Next job is to sort out the petcock, and then we can get it all back together, but I think that's where we're going to leave this for now. I'll wipe off the excess WD-40. Mainly because this is going in the conservatory and I don't want it going everywhere. But the WD-40 gets rid of a lot of muck as well. It's greasy, but it degreases at the same time. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. So there we have it in the inside of the tank. Looks a lot better. It's not quite brand new out of the factory, but it's actually not far off. And uncoated, unpainted is how it would have been. So with a fuel line filter, or any bits of that rust you can see will get caught on their way to the carb, so they won't block it up. I'm not worried about it not being lined, because it wasn't lined out of the factory, and if I need to, I'll just buy some of that Wagner stuff. But yeah, pleased with that. Thanks for watching. Then we'll let that fizz for a while.